Hello everyone, please press subscribe, press follow, press the bell so you don't miss any new clips. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Author by Flying Alone. Audio novels by Novelist. Chapter 181, Promise. He was not sure if the eldest imperial prince would be able to find the secret Xuanhuan was hiding, but based on his estimation, odds were low. That was because the third imperial prince had already taken action a few days ago, yet because of the appearance and interference of Liang Guangzhu, the imperial guards the third imperial prince had sent were easily chased out of the academy. After such an incident, the third imperial prince would definitely have begun his own investigation on Xuanhuan. If the third imperial prince had discovered anything, then he would definitely have come to inform Ling Han. Unfortunately, there was no news at all from the third imperial prince even by now, so it was evident that he had not managed to find anything out. When Ling Han arrived at Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, Ling Han first comforted Li Hao and Zhu Yi. For the moment, Li Hao would definitely be unable to return to the academy, but for Li Hao, this was definitely a blessing in disguise. What kind of place was the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion? A place that sold medicines. There may be nothing else here, but if one were talking about alchemical pills, perhaps at least about 1/3 of the supply of alchemical pills in the whole of Rain Country could be found here. And if you were talking about high-grade alchemical pills, then these pills were basically all distributed from this place to other parts of Rain Country. Ling Han now took Li Hao as a real friend, so he naturally would request Xuanhuan to provide an unlimited supply of alchemical pills for Li Hao, while he himself would also guide Li Hao a bit on his path of cultivation. Just think, he had both an endless supply of alchemical pills, as well as someone who used to be an elite of heaven tier to guide him in his cultivation. If Li Hao's prowess was still unable to improve drastically, then he really should find a piece of tofu and knock himself to death. Li Hao and Zhu Yi naturally understood this logic, so they could not help becoming even more grateful towards Ling Han. They both secretly decided that they would definitely do something for Ling Han in the future to repay him. After leaving Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, Ling Han had yet to return to the academy when he was stopped midway and invited over by the third imperial prince. Brother Ling. The third imperial prince was still exuding his signature dominating aura, though there was an added sliver of concern on his face. I heard that my eldest brother went to see you today. Since your imperial highness is already aware, then why do you need to ask a question that you already know the answer to? Ling Han said directly. He was not the slightest bit interested in the competition between these two brothers, and did not have the slightest intention to get himself involved in such a troublesome issue. He. The third imperial prince laughed. I trust that brother Ling would not be so easily moved by my eldest brother's flowery words. Ling Han could not help but smile, and said, that may not be. He recited the conditions that the eldest imperial prince had set out, and the expression on the third imperial prince's face constantly changed as he heard Ling Han's words, secretly thinking that the eldest imperial prince was indeed ruthless, that he would even dare promise to name Ling Han as a king and assist him to break through to flower blossoming tier. One had to understand that even if the current Rain Emperor wanted to name someone not of the Qi family as a king, he would still encounter much objection from the members of the imperial court. There were too many high stakes involved in this matter, and it was definitely not something so simple that merely granting a title would be able to resolve it. If one were to be named king, then he should definitely have a piece of land to build his own kingdom. However, Rain Country had already been established for a few thousand years, and all the land under the administration of the empire had already long been divided amongst the nobility, so where would Ling Han's land come from? Unless Ling Han were to lead the army out to war and occupy the land belonging to the neighboring nations. And using the power of the nation to help Ling Han break through to flower blossoming tier was even more nonsense. If it was as easy as that, then why was there only a single person in flower blossoming tier in the whole of Rain Country? I know that brother Ling is extremely loyal, and would definitely not betray me. The third imperial prince laughed loudly, seeming to be very happy. However, Ling Han noticed the dark tone underlining his laughter. In a struggle for the throne, who would not be cold-blooded and cruel? Even blood and flesh brothers would be able to stab each other. Ling Han laughed, and said, that may not be. If there was enough benefit in the game, then anything can be discussed. Pooh. The third imperial prince instantly choked, feeling as if someone had delivered a punch to his face. His expression was indescribably awkward. His face twitched and he forced out a smile, and said, Brother Ling is indeed a good joker. Ling Han shook his head and said, I am not joking here. For example, if I were able to cultivate the Eye of Truth, then I will definitely become good friends with your Imperial Highness. Eye of Truth. The expression on the third imperial prince's face changed drastically, and he finally understood that the eldest imperial prince had revealed the existence of this precious treasure to Ling Han. However, when compared with naming him as a king, or using power of the nation to help him break through to flower-blossoming tier, this mystical power was a much smaller bargaining chip. If it was not the fact that it was locked within the inner chamber, he would not mind taking it out and handing it over to Ling Han. After all, it was only a support-type mystical power, and after so many years, there was no one who had been able to obtain the inheritance from within, so he believed that Ling Han would not be an exception either. Trading a practically useless item for a powerful support, how could a genius like the third imperial prince not want to make such a profitable bargain? But the problem was that he indeed did not have the right to enter into the inner chamber. Hold on. The third imperial prince tapped his finger, and said, after another 2 months, it would be my imperial father's 60th birthday and the whole nation would be in celebration. At that time, my imperial father would definitely host a grand banquet for the guests, and draw out some treasures from the national treasury for everyone to admire, so there would be a chance to enter into the national treasury. However, the lock to the inner chamber is the Heaven and Earth United lock, and unless one has the key, there is no way that it can be unlocked. AI. However, Ling Han's eyes lit up at this. He had the blood-sucking origin gold in his possession which could change shape following his will and would be able to open any lock on this world, so this was nothing difficult for him. He said, then I really would like to enter into the national treasury for a look. The third imperial prince was a smart man, so he immediately looked at Ling Han in shock and said, Brother Ling has a way to unlock the Heaven and Earth United lock. Ha ha. I learnt a few tricks of lock picking. Ling Han would naturally not reveal the existence of the blood-sucking origin gold, so he simply used an excuse for cover. The third imperial prince considered for a moment, then said, all right, when I manage to win over the position to organize this event, I will bring Brother Ling into the national treasury. However, Brother Ling, let me say this first. There are a lot of extremely valuable treasures in the inner chamber, and they are extremely important, so you must definitely not take any of them. Otherwise, not just you, but even I will have to suffer the consequences. Don't worry. I am not interested in any other items, Ling Han said with a smile. The third imperial prince could not help but roll his eyes at this. He naturally would not believe Ling Han's words, but for the sake of obtaining Ling Han's support, he could not worry about these things. Moreover, he would be standing at one side to observe then, so he would definitely not let Ling Han do as he liked. There were risks, but the risk level was under control. Then I shall take my leave first, and quietly wait for good news from your Imperial Highness, Ling Han said, smiling. Brother Ling, please. The third Imperial Prince nodded. Ling Han cast a look at Ziyan. The girl seemed to have changed into a completely different person and had become reticent with a colder attitude. He did not pay too much attention to this though. It was none of his business, after all. When he returned to his own courtyard in the academy, he saw that Lu Yutong and Li Xichan were both there. Both of them had come to express their concerns. Afterwards, Master purposely went to visit Master Lian, but Master Lian said he had his own difficulties. He would unconditionally support whatever Feng Yan decided to do, Li Xichan said. Lu Yutong said, I used the power of my clan to investigate Feng Yan, but I was not able to find out anything. Just like you, he seems to have suddenly become powerful overnight. Ling Han revealed a pensive expression. So Lian Guangzhu had actually said that he would unconditionally support whatever Feng Yan decided to do. That was a shocking promise. And the bigger the power in Feng Yan's hands, the more disadvantageous things would be for Ling Han. Of course, he himself had the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion as well as the Alchemy Department behind him, and these two parties were definitely not beneath the Martial Arts Department in terms of power. If it really came to a full-on clash, then it would definitely draw the imperial family of Rain Country, as well as the 8 great clans, into this conflict. The Rain Emperor would definitely not allow this kind of internal conflict to ensue. It was strange. He was able to subdue Fu Yuansheng, Wu Songlin and the other alchemists because of his alchemy ability from his last life, but it most likely was not to the level that they would obey his every command. Feng Yan had risen up so suddenly and in such a strange manner. The imperial family of Rain Country must have done their own investigation on him. If even the power of a whole nation is unable to find anything out, then you should not waste your time worrying about this matter, Ling Han said to Lu Yutong. Don't forget yourself, Li Xichan pointed out. Isn't your rising very sudden and strange as well? Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 182, Reflection. Ling Han was stunned for a moment before breaking out in laughter. That's right. He forgot about himself. He had been the Alchemy Emperor in his last life, so he naturally took the way that all alchemists respected him and held him in great reverence to be something very normal. However, he had forgotten that he was only 17 years old now. In the eyes of the politically powerful, he was also an unstable variable and an existence that could affect the stability of the reign of the Qi family, and if things came to a head, he could even be easily eliminated. If they knew that I was the one who had concocted the 9 foundation-building pills, they would be even more astonished, wouldn't they? Ling Han murmured to himself as he supported his chin with one hand. The foundation-building pills were divine medicine that could really affect the current delicate power balance in Rain Country, and if there appeared another 10+ spiritual pedestal-tier elites, then things would definitely become a complete mess. That was because the cake was only so big, and if there was someone new added to the mix who wanted to get his own share, then that would definitely mean that those who already had their own share would have to let go of a portion of their own share for the newcomer. Who would want to let go of what they already had in their possession? I did not think things through far enough, it seems. Ling Han reflected on his life since the moment that he had been reborn. It was still fine in Grey Cloud Town and Dayuan City, but after entering into the Imperial City, it seems that he had been a bit too brash. But so what if I am a bit brash? With the identity of a black-grade high-level alchemist, not even the Rain Emperor would easily take action against me. Ling Han tapped his fingers in thought, as light flashed in his eyes. However, the issue about obtaining the Eye of Truth would have to be reconsidered. Though I have never seen the Rain Emperor before, it is rumored that this emperor is extremely intelligent and very capable at maintaining control. Those two sons of his keep planning and scheming here and there right in this imperial city, how could he not notice it all? Who knows? There may be Rain Emperor's spies planted right at the side of those two imperial princes. If, at the moment I open up the inner chamber and retrieve the Eye of Truth, and was so, coincidentally, caught red-handed, then even the status of an alchemist would not be able to protect me. My only fate would be being executed for my crime. Otherwise, I would be imprisoned for life to keep concocting alchemical pills for the Qi family for the rest of my days. A sliver of a smile flickered at the corners of Ling Han's lips, and he thought, I was too strong and powerful in my last life, so no one dared to use underhanded schemes against me. However, after my rebirth, I have been a bit careless. Who knows? I may meet with unexpected failure in what seems to be something very easy for me. My priority now should be breaking through to Gushing Spring Tier, and discovering the real secrets of the Black Tower. This is the most precious of all treasures in this world. I can't pick up the sesame seed and instead lose sight of the watermelon. When they saw his thoughts stray, both Lu Yutong and Li Xichan asked at the same time, what are you thinking about? Right after their words fell, they both glared at each other. Why did she say the same thing as me again? How hateful. It's nothing. I just broke through, so I need to stabilize my cultivation first, Ling Han said, smiling. 9th layer of element gathering tier. Lu Yutong suddenly screamed. What? Li Xichan was also shocked, because Ling Han was very obviously still in the 7th layer of element gathering tier just the day before. He actually managed to break through 2 cultivation layers in a single day. Could he be even more outrageous than that? It's nothing to make a fuss about. Ling Han smiled calmly. In his last life, he had reached the formidable height of heaven tier, so how could such a small breakthrough in element gathering tier cause him to feel ecstatic about? What a poser. Both girls gave him a look of disdain. When did I pose? Ling Han felt very wronged, but he did not want to bother himself to argue with the 2 girls, and instead continued to ponder over his sword arts as he wanted to form the 7th flash of sword chi. Once he managed to form the 7th flash of sword chi, his battle prowess would be able to rise to another level. More importantly, that would mean that he was one more step closer to sword ray. The conflict between Feng Yan and Ling Han caused huge waves at the academy, because even the 2 headmasters appeared at the end of the conflict. Ling Han was still fine because Wu Songlin did not say much. That was why the majority thought that he had just coincidentally passed by and decided to uphold the justice. Feng Yan was a different story. The theory about him being Lian Guangzu's illegitimate son gave rise to a tremendous clamor, and the majority thought that was practically confirmed. Of course, there were still some who managed to look deeper into things. Lian Guangzu's attitude towards Feng Yan was not as if the latter was his illegitimate son, but rather more like a relationship between an old servant and his young master. However, this old servant had a very firm backbone, and the young master was still too weak. Thus, the relationship was not very distinct yet. Whatever the case was, Feng Yan had already become a very popular and mighty figure in the eyes of the academy. However, the fact that his younger brother had his arms sliced off by Ling Han, and he still was unable to do anything to Ling Han in vengeance, was still a hit to his image. Feng Yan had already announced that Ling Han was his foe, and he would definitely kill Ling Han within 3 months. If anyone dared to befriend Ling Han, then they would not be able to escape a similar fate. After these words were announced, the whole academy was in an uproar as they all thought that Feng Yan was much too arrogant. Putting aside the possibility that Feng Yan may be Lian Guangzu's illegitimate son, even if he was Lian Guangzu's old man, he still did not have the right to rage so publicly in the imperial city and announce his intention to commit murder. After all, this was the land of the Qi family, and not the Lian clan. Unexpectedly, the imperial family did not display any reaction about this matter. No one knew if they were only pretending that they had not heard of any such thing, or thought that Feng Yan was too young and so decided not to call him to account for the sake of Lian Guangzu. However, the new auction of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion was right around the corner. Because there were 9 foundation building pills up for auction this time around, this caused incredible excitement to rise up among the great clans and the other middle-class clans. Even the imperial family would not be able to maintain their composure. After all, there was only one person in flower blossoming tier in the whole of Rain Country, and he had not appeared for many years, so it was unknown whether he was still alive or already dead. In Rain Country, the spiritual pedestal tier was doubtlessly the strongest cultivation tier, and those in this cultivation level would be able to do as they liked and practically disregard the laws of the empire. These people were really the elite of the elite. The foundation building pill could greatly increase the chances of a martial artist to break through to spiritual pedestal tier, so this naturally attracted the excitement of every known party. Who would not want a few more such extremely powerful people to provide additional security for their own power base? In the world of martial artists, everything was gained through power. The middle-class clans wanted to obtain a foundation building pill in order to ascend to the level of a great clan, while the 8 great clans and the imperial family hoped to have a few more elites of spiritual pedestal tier to strengthen the power of their own clans and further secure their own position in the power balance. This was destined to be a very fierce competition. Ling Han was completely unbothered. Money was only something he needed to buy more medicinal ingredients and concoct more alchemical pills. Even if he had more of it, it was not of much use to him. When the day of the auction arrived, the eldest imperial prince had indeed arrived very early and earnestly extended an invitation to Ling Han. Lu Yutong and Li Xichen were long aware of the auction, and so had naturally come early. Thus, Ling Han would have to bring along the both of them, as well as who knew. Ha ha ha, so young Master Han has already plucked the two most beautiful flowers of the imperial city. I was still feeling a bit strange previously about the fact that young Master Han did not have any beauties by his side, especially when you were so outstanding and elegant. The eldest imperial prince laughed loudly, looking as if he had found a kindred spirit. Lu Yutong and Li Xichen both blushed, but did not argue. It was unknown whether it was because they were a bit subdued by the eldest imperial prince's power or had just simply chosen to admit indirectly. Meanwhile, Ling Han rolled his eyes. So this guy had previously thought that he had some kind of problem there, or perhaps thought that he liked men. He laughed and said, Yutong and Xichen are my good friends. Good friends. I get it. I get it. The eldest imperial prince's smile became even more suggestive. Damn, this guy of impure thoughts. Ling Han changed the topic and asked, does your Imperial Highness also want the foundation building pill? Though I have not yet broken through to spiritual ocean tier, my current cultivation level would at most continue to trouble me for one more year. The eldest imperial prince said confidently. If I manage to obtain a foundation building pill, then I would have higher odds when I attempt breaking through to spiritual pedestal tier in the future. Unfortunately, I am limited in my financial resources. Otherwise, I will definitely try to obtain all 9 foundation building pills. That way, my breakthrough to spiritual pedestal tier would be practically definite. Lu Yutong and Li Xichen could not help but look towards Ling Han. This guy very casually produced those 9 foundation building pills. If you manage to cling to him, then that would really ensure that you can successfully break through. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 183. Sun Ziyan. Ling Han laughed and said, a few years ago, I was having lunch at a restaurant and coincidentally encountered a pair of assassins. Moreover, 3 members of the Black Cloud Army even died. The eldest imperial prince was stunned for a second, then asked, young Master Han was also at the scene on that day. Ling Han nodded and said, that woman seems to be a member of the imperial family, right? From the looks of her, she has yet to reach 30 years old, and yet has already stepped into spiritual ocean tier. Her accomplishment is really something awe-inspiring. The face of the eldest imperial prince instantly darkened. He kept his silence for a moment, then said, this woman's name is Zuke Sin. She had entered the court just a few years ago. My imperial father named her as Consort Yun, and dotes on her very much. Since young Master Han knows that the power of the nation can help one to break through to flower blossoming tier, then you should know that it can also help to speed up one's cultivation rate. However, the power of the nation is still limited, yet my imperial father actually used a large portion of it on a woman. Heng. The last words of the eldest imperial prince were already extremely traitorous as he dared to actually criticize the actions of the current emperor. However, it was also very obvious from his tone that the eldest imperial prince was very displeased with this Zuke Sin. Ling Han thought back on the naturally seductive appearance of Zuke Sin, and could not help but think that it was no wonder that even the Rain Emperor would be head over heels over her. She was indeed a captivating beauty. It was evident how much the emperor doted on her just from the fact that she could leave the palace with the Black Cloud Army as her guards. If she did not have the emperor's favor, then, as an imperial consort, how could she so casually leave the imperial palace? Does this consort Yun have any children? Ling Han asked casually. Thankfully, no. The eldest imperial prince shook his head. Otherwise, based on the way the Rain Emperor doted on her, neither himself nor the third imperial prince would need to waste their time to compete for the throne. As they conversed, time passed and they had arrived at the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. Right when they had just disembarked from their carriage, they saw a young man approach him and say, "This Sun Ziyan greets your Imperial Highness." Sun Ziyan. A thought flashed through Ling Han's head. He turned to look at this young man. The latter was average in terms of looks and was quite tall and slender. He should have just stepped into gushing spring tears. His aura was still not very stable. "Spare the niceties, Ziyan." The eldest imperial prince raised his hand slightly, naturally exuding the aura of a ruler. The most powerful and greatest clan in Rain Country was naturally the Qi family, which held control over the political court and had power that spread to all corners of their empire. However, the Sun clan was only slightly beneath the Qi family in status, so Sun Ziyan was not really afraid of the eldest imperial prince. After paying his greetings, he turned to look at Ling Han and said, "Brother Ling, we have finally met." Looks like Sun Ziyan was deliberately waiting for him here. "Sun Ziyan, what do you want?" Lu Yutong asked coldly. As a good female attendant, she naturally had to stand at the front lines. A stunned and envious expression appeared on Sun Ziyan's face. Lu Yutong and Li Xichan were known as the twin pearls of the imperial city, and the number of men that were interested in them was enough to surround the whole imperial city a few times. He himself was also one of the admirers. Unfortunately, it seemed as if these two beautiful flowers were actually plucked by the same man. This was really something that would attract envy, jealousy, and hatred. If Ling Han had any idea of his current thoughts, he would definitely scream out loudly that he was innocent. The gods know that he really hadn't done anything. He was as pure as a little white flower. Sun Ziyan smiled and said, "I only wanted to settle a little conflict between myself and Brother Ling." "Oh, there is such an issue," the eldest imperial prince interrupted. "It's just a little misunderstanding," Sun Ziyan said in an understatement. "Oh," Ling Han's eyes turned cold. "Are you talking about how that father-in-law of yours coveted my two little sisters, and when he did not succeed in tricking and kidnapping them, he sent people to snatch them from me? So that was a misunderstanding, TSK. Fury flashed through Sun Ziyan's face, but he forced it down and said, "Brother Ling, aren't those two little sisters of yours unscathed and completely unharmed? I am here to represent my father-in-law to offer up an apology, and will also deliver a gift as thanks for accepting our apology, so please forget about this matter, Brother Ling, and not continue doing something that will only damage both sides." The eldest imperial prince nodded, and said with a smile, "Since Ziyan is so sincere, why won't Brother Ling give me some face and forgive Ziyan and forget the whole matter?" Lu Yutong looked on with a little worry. She knew Ling Han's personality very well and feared that Ling Han would come into a direct conflict with the eldest imperial prince. Ling Han laughed loudly. When Sun Ziyan and the eldest imperial prince saw this, they both laughed as well, thinking that the misunderstanding was settled. "No." Right at this moment, Ling Han suddenly declared. Cough. Cough. Both the eldest imperial prince and Sun Ziyan did not manage to get their breath back and broke out into coughs. Their faces were darkened as they looked at Ling Han. "Since you are not agreeing to resolving things peacefully, then why were you laughing so happily?" "Brother Ling, I am being very sincere here." Sun Ziyan's tone deepened considerably as well, a hint of threat underlining his words. Ling Han smiled calmly and said, "I am also very sincerely telling you that there is no way that this matter will be resolved peacefully. That old father-in-law of yours is a complete scum, and continuing to allow him to live in this world would only be a waste of food. Brother Ling, are you intending to declare war with the Sun clan with this?" Sun Ziyan asked darkly. He, Ziyan, you are being too harsh in your words, aren't you?" The eldest imperial prince stepped out as mediator. He did not want to first form an enmity with the Sun clan when he had yet to obtain the support that would come with an amiable relationship with Ling Han. Ling Han smiled and asked, "Sun Ziyan, can you really represent the Sun clan? You dare to insult me?" Sun Ziyan glared at him. This guy must have been deliberate, pausing while saying his name in such a way that Sun Zi came first, then followed by Yan. "Yi, isn't Sun Ziyan your name?" So does that mean calling your name is equivalent to insulting you? What a weird fellow. Ling Han shook his head. Heng, it would be all right if you call my name in a normal way, but the way you called my name just now must have been deliberate. Sun Ziyan declared harshly. Ling Han revealed a very innocent expression, and asked, how did I call you just now, again? Sun Ziyan. Sun Ziyan did not suspect anything and repeated his name the way Ling Han had called his name just now. But just after the words left his mouth, he finally realized his blunder and flew into a great rage as he shouted, Ling Han, you dare to trick me? With an intelligence level like yours, AI. Ling Han shook his head. You really only deserve to be a grandson. You're looking for death. Sun Ziyan was furious and aimed a harsh punch towards Ling Han. Ting. Lu Yutong stepped out and blocked Sun Ziyan's fist with the hilt of her sword. She said coldly, Sun Ziyan, don't force me to draw my sword. Sun Ziyan took one step back and looked at Lu Yutong with caution. He was not able to detect her real cultivation level, which made it evident that she had superior cultivation to his. He needed to be extremely cautious when facing her. Ha ha, both of you are important subjects of our nation, so please avoid coming into conflict, the eldest imperial prince interrupted, standing between the two of them. The two of them were both members of the 8 great clans. It was all right if it was just a spar, but if there was any loss of life, then even an imperial prince like himself would have to bear the blame. At such an important time in the battle for the throne, even the slightest mistake could cause him to lose all hope of his dreams of inheriting the throne. When you return, let Chen Yunxiang clean his neck properly, as I will personally send him to the executioner's block, Ling Han said calmly, but there was an extremely determined tone underlining his words. Sun Ziyan regained his composure, and asked, Ling Han, must you do something that will hurt both sides? What do you mean by hurting both sides? Ling Han asked, smiling. Heng, since that is so, then don't blame me for taking action. Sun Ziyan said coldly. Let me give you a piece of helpful advice. You should be more careful with those stores of yours. The imperial city is too big, so it is unavoidable that some rogues would come to make trouble. Ling Han sighed, and said, then I would have to eliminate another clan then. His words were spoken very lightly, but the eldest imperial prince had still vaguely heard them and his expression instantly changed. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 184. Please go up to the 3rd floor. Eliminate another clan, the Sun clan. The eldest imperial prince could not help but turn to look at Ling Han. Though he looked very highly upon Ling Han, not even all the alchemists of Rain Country standing behind Ling Han would be able to eliminate the Sun clan. That was because the 8 great clans were the pillars of support of the nation, and if things really proceeded to that step, then not only would the Rain Emperor take action, even the elder of the Qi family that usually stood behind the scenes would spring out into the open. But from the extremely calm and composed, practically cold look on Ling Han's face, this did not seem like words of anger he had said simply in the heat of the moment. The hidden depths within his eyes even caused an icy feeling to rise up in the heart of the eldest imperial prince. How could that be? He was in the 9th layer of gushing spring tier and had 1 foot into the door of spiritual ocean tier. Moreover, he was the eldest imperial prince of the empire, yet he would actually feel a bit of fear just from looking at the eyes of a young man. Heng, I hope you will not be so foolish. Sun Ziyan did not hear Ling Han's murmur. The flick of his sleeves was proof enough of his extreme displeasure. That was natural. He had thought that he only needed to step out as a mediator and the conflict between Ling Han and Chen Yunxiang would be resolved with a few words from him. He had not thought that Ling Han would not give him the slightest bit of face. The eldest imperial prince did not speak any more words of advice. Ling Han's words previously were obviously spoken just loud enough for him to be able to hear. If he continued to advise Ling Han, would Ling Han speak even more shocking words, and declare his intention to eliminate another clan? Then that would really be considered treason. Sun Ziyan turned and left. When he arrived at the entrance to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, an old man came up to receive him and said, "Ziyan, what did that brat say?" It was Chen Yunxiang. A sliver of displeasure flickered across Sun Ziyan's face. Though he did not care about the lives of a few commoners, he still felt very disgusted with this old man that had that kind of perverted fetish. Still, what could he do? This was his father-in-law, after all. He refused to let it go. He shook his head. Chen Yunxiang was stunned at first before immediately saying angrily, "This brat actually refused to give face even to you, Ziyan, just because he has the protection of the princess of the Lu clan." Sun Ziyan humphed. He naturally knew that Chen Yunxiang was fanning the flames, but he was indeed displeased. Both the eldest and third imperial princes seemed to have quite an amiable relation with this brat. It's not as simple as him depending on a woman. What? Chen Yunxiang instantly broke out into a cold sweat. The Chen clan was only a minor clan, and if he actually attracted the displeasure of such important people like the eldest and third imperial prince, that would mean that the Chen clan could be eliminated at any time. "What are you so afraid of?" Sun Ziyan asked coldly. "He, with Ziyan to protect me, I naturally need not fear anything," Chen Yunxiang quickly flattered him. Though he was Sun Ziyan's father-in-law, their social status was completely different. Sun Ziyan gave another humph. He turned back around and looked as Ling Han and his group walked up the stairs, an icy smile flickering around the corners of his lips. "Greetings, Your Imperial Highness." The guards standing at the entrance of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion were naturally clever people, so when they saw the eldest imperial prince, they quickly hurried forwards and bowed in greeting. Meanwhile, a minor manager immediately came out to receive them as he said, "With the grand arrival of Your Imperial Highness, young masters and princesses, our pavilion is honored by your appearance. Please, please." With that minor manager guiding them, they followed him and walked up the staircase. The second and third floors were both comprised of private rooms, but there were only 20 of them available on the third floor. They were reserved for extremely important people such as the current reign emperor, the clan heads of the 8 great clans, the 2 headmasters of Huyang Academy as well as the pavilion master of the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. Any others, even if it was the eldest and third imperial prince, would only be able to settle for a private room on the second floor. Thus, when they arrived on the landing on the second floor, they naturally had to stop climbing the stairs. "Our esteemed guests, your private room awaits you on the third floor," the minor manager said in a strange tone. "Ye." Everyone's steps paused. Third floor? How could that be possible? If you were talking about the person with the highest status amongst them, then that would definitely be the eldest imperial prince. However, even he did not have the right to go up to the third floor, unless he managed to ascend to the imperial throne and become the ruler of this empire. Young Master Han is the most honored guest of our pavilion, and so naturally has the right to go up to the third floor. The minor manager said, respectfully bowing in Ling Han's direction. What? Everyone was dumbstruck. How could that be? What right did his brat, merely 16 or 17 years old and in the 9th layer of element gathering tier, have to go up to the third floor and be on the same level as the clan heads of the 8 great clans, the 2 headmasters of the academy, the boss of alchemy in Rain Country, or even the Rain Emperor? Ling Han glanced cursorily at the minor manager, and the latter only offered him a good-natured smile. He knew that the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, to confirm the origin of the foundation building pills, must have gone to the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion and done their own investigation. They would have found out that the pills were concocted by Ling Han. Those were foundation building pills one was talking about here. Their grade was close to Earth-grade pills, and this not only implied that Ling Han was already a black-grade high-level alchemist, but that he was practically a confirmed Earth-grade alchemist in the near future. Such a person would still not have the right to go up to the third floor. Ha ha, thanks to young Master Han, I would be able to go up to the third floor now. The eldest imperial prince laughed loudly, though there was a sliver of confusion and envy, as well as astonishment, in his eyes. The Spirit Treasures Pavilion was a business, so how could they break their own rules? Since they had prepared a private room on the third floor for Ling Han, that meant that Ling Han had power or background that deserved this kind of priority treatment. This was astonishing to him. What right did Ling Han have to be on the same level as the clan heads of the 8 great clans and the boss of Alchemy of Rain Country and other such extremely important people? Sun Ziyan's expression instantly darkened. He had previously looked down on Ling Han, and thought that he was so arrogant because a woman backed him, and now, through some unknown means, he had gotten his hooks into the eldest and third imperial prince. But from the looks of the current scenario, it was obvious he was wrong in his estimation. Not even the eldest imperial prince had the right to enjoy a private room on the third floor, what more to actually obtain one for Ling Han. He was surprised, and Chen Yunxiang was even more dumbstruck. He was so scared that his face had completely paled. Secretly, he was already beginning to regret his utter misfortune and that he would actually encounter such a deadly character like Ling Han. When he looked at Ling Han ascend further up the steps, a complicated expression appeared on Sun Ziyan's face. Should he still continue down his path of darkness and continue to go against Ling Han? It was obvious that the latter's background was very likely astonishingly powerful. When he looked at Chen Yunxiang, he could not help but think of his beautiful and seductive concubine. Then his gaze became even more determined. It was already decided that he would interfere in this matter. Not only was it for the sake of that concubine of his, but also for his own pride. He was a young master of the Sun clan, and no one should be able to step on his pride. There were only 20 private rooms on the third floor, but each private room was extremely spacious, with capacity to accommodate a few dozen people. Moreover, there were also beautiful female attendants waiting to serve guests within, earnestly serving dishes and filling their cups. Ling Han and the others all sat down, while Humiu knelt on Ling Han's lap solemnly, her little figure held firmly and strictly. "Young Master Han, is this your sister?" the eldest imperial prince said with a smile. "Something like that," Ling Han said, smiling. He dotingly rubbed Humiu's head, and a satisfied expression instantly appeared on the little girl's face. Like a kitten, she rubbed her head against Ling Han's chest. The eldest imperial prince observed Humiu closely for a moment, and could not hold back an expression of shock. He pointed at Humiu and said in astonishment, she's actually in element gathering tier. This little girl was only about 5 or 6 years old, but was shockingly already in element gathering tier. This was enough to shock anyone to death. Humiu glared at the eldest imperial prince in displeasure. Ling Han hated being pointed at by someone, and she was heavily influenced by Ling Han, and so naturally had the same dislike. Her little mouth opened wide, revealing her little white teeth, looking like she was ready to bite someone. "Be good, Mu," Ling Han said, smiling. Humiu instantly withdrew her fierce expression, and smiled sweetly at Ling Han. The eldest imperial prince, meanwhile, was stuck in a state of shock and astonishment. How could there be such a young person in element gathering tier? This was too unreal. Indeed, it seems that birds of a feather flock together. Ling Han himself was a monster, so even the people around him were monsters too. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 185, Bidding for the Foundation Building Pill. My thanks to all our esteemed guests. We are honored by your presence. An old man dressed in an embroidered robe walked up to the auctioneer's stage and started tonight's auction. I know very well that there are many here today who have come especially for the foundation building pill. However, there is also a number of other quite good items prepared for the auction today, so I would advise everyone not to dump all your money on simply the foundation building pill. When they heard his words, everyone laughed, and the atmosphere instantly became more relaxed. However, this relaxed state was only temporary. When the foundation building pill appeared, it was guaranteed that all of them would become agitated. One foundation building pill would allow a martial artist who stood at the top of the spiritual ocean tier to build the foundations for his spiritual pedestal and enter a higher cultivation level to become one of the most influential persons in the whole of Rain Country. What person, or what clan, would not go crazy over it? How many spiritual pedestal tier elites were there in the whole of Rain country? Even for the 8 great clans and the imperial family, they would only have 2 or 3 spiritual pedestal tier elites that were publicly known to oversee things in their clan. Even if there were a few that played the role of the hidden ace and thus not known publicly, if a clan could have 5 such powerful martial artists in their ranks, it was definitely enough to shock everyone to death. According to rumors, there would be 9 foundation building pills on auction today. If they could all be obtained by a single party, then in the best-case scenario, they would be able to allow 9 martial artists at the peak of spiritual ocean tier break through to spiritual pedestal tier. What kind of concept was that? In a single instant, this clan would be able to surpass the 8 great clans. Of course, even after taking the foundation building pill, it was not possible that every person who had swallowed it would be able to successfully break through, but if there was a 50% chance, that would mean there would be 4 or 5 who can successfully break through. If there was only 1/3 of a chance, there would also be at least 3. Anyone who would not go crazy over them must be stupid. So what if alchemical pills were exorbitantly expensive? As long as one was able to enter into spiritual pedestal tier, no matter how much they had to pay for such an alchemical pill, they would be able to earn back easily. Everyone laughed loudly, but all of their eyes had a determined gleam to them. Tonight, even if they had to lose their entire family fortune, they would definitely get their hands on a foundation building pill. Ling Han felt a hidden current in the air, and could not help but smile. The foundation building pills may be able to go for an astronomical price in the auction tonight. That was all thanks to the fact that there were really too few elites of spiritual pedestal tier in Rain country. If it was in a place where the field of martial arts was prosperous and booming, and there would be as many so-called elites of spiritual pedestal tier as stray dogs, then how little would foundation building pills be worth? I've never thought that there would be so many people. I was feeling confident at first and thought that, in the worst-case scenario, I had to at least get 1 or, better yet, 2. However, now I'm feeling rather uneasy. The chances don't look very good even for getting only 1. The eldest imperial prince, shaking his head. Ling Han smiled and said, "Your Imperial Highness has yet to step into spiritual ocean tier, and there is at least another 5 years until the time when you would need to attempt breaking through to spiritual pedestal tier. Who knows? There may be new foundation building pills again by then." The eldest imperial prince sighed and said, "Young Master Han may not be aware as you have just arrived in the imperial city. However, at least as far as I can remember, never have alchemical pills that could aid one in breaking through appeared. Setting aside such high-grade alchemical pills like the foundation building pill, even the purple cloud pill which is used to help to break through to gushing spring tier is extremely rare." Ling Han instantly put on a strange expression. The main ingredient of that purple cloud pill was the dark moon grass, which could be used to help widen the space in one's dantian. Even ultimate warriors of heaven tier would be moved by such a chance, so how could it not be rare? I don't know who has supplied these 9 foundation building pills tonight, but that person would definitely be making a killing. The eldest imperial prince said a little enviously. The imperial family was extremely wealthy, but the eldest imperial prince was still envious. It was obvious that he thought these 9 foundation building pills would be able to go for an astronomical amount that would cause even one such as him to lose control. Lu Yutong and Li Xichan both turned their beautiful eyes to look at Ling Han. The fellow who would be making a killing tonight was precisely this laid-back, relaxed young man right over here. And the person mentioned did not even look like he was taking this seriously at all. However, the foundation building pills are very close to Earth grade. Even if they were concocted by an Earth grade alchemist, chances for failure are still very high. In my opinion, at least about 20 or 30 furnaces worth of ingredients would explode before successfully concocting these 9 foundation building pills. Going by this, although there is still profit to be earned, it is within reasonable limits, the eldest imperial prince said in a very certain tone, changing the direction of the conversation. He turned around and saw Ling Han and his 2 female companions had rather strange expressions. He could not help but feel surprised, and asked, "What is the matter with you all?" Both Lu Yutong and Li Xichan were trying to hold back their laughter. It was really a tough job. Ling Han was that person who had concocted these 9 foundation building pills. Moreover, he did it in one go. Additionally, one furnace should have only been able to produce 8 pills, but he, with an amazing purification technique of his own, produced 9 pills in the end. The pill completion rate had practically exceeded 100%. You, with such a solemn, short tone, declared that at least 20 or 30 furnaces had to explode before being able to concoct these 9 pills. How could this not cause them to want to laugh uproariously? Of course, these 2 girls were very reserved and still gave face to the eldest imperial prince. Thus, through extreme willpower, they held back their laughter. However, this also caused their expressions to naturally become very strange. Ling Han laughed, and asked, "How much money has your Imperial Highness brought today?" 20 million. What a wealthy man. Ling Han did not mind giving him such praise in the slightest, because this money would very quickly enter into his pocket. Everyone would naturally love someone who would be delivering money to them. Oh, it's nothing. The eldest imperial prince pretended to be very modest. In fact, this wealth was practically all his savings. After all, he was merely an imperial prince now. Lu Yutong and Li Xichan both shook their heads, thinking, "Your Imperial Highness, you're still pretending to be modest, but you don't know that this guy has already started considering all that money of yours as his." Everyone, the 9 foundation building pills will be auctioned off separately throughout the entire auction, so please do not walk away and miss out on it. After the combined appraisal by a few alchemists of the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion hired by our pavilion, these 9 foundation building pills are worth 13 stars. All of you should know what a grade of 13 stars implies, right? The auctioneer said with a smile. Clapping his hands, he continued, "And now, to start off the auction, we'll be auctioning off the first foundation building pill to liven up the atmosphere. The base price is 5 million, and every bid cannot be lower than 100,000. After he finished speaking, those rich and imposing people did not look very pleased, while those who were embarrassingly short of money smiled. If these 9 foundation building pills were auctioned off in one go, then there would definitely be very few people able to afford them, so in the end, the price would not be too shocking. However, if they were auctioned off one by one, the competition would become much fiercer, and in extreme conditions, one foundation building pill may go for a price that even exceeded the price of the other 8 pills combined. Thus, those rich people were naturally displeased, as this had added a larger number of bidders they had to compete with for a single pill. 5 million. 5,500,000. 5,700,000. Very quickly, the sound of bids endlessly appeared. That was because it was acknowledged by all that a foundation building pill was worth about 10 million. Thus, everyone was still very enthusiastically bidding, and the price was still very far from the limits they had set in their hearts. The eldest imperial prince also began to place bids. Unfortunately, his status was completely useless in the current scenario. No one would be retreating simply because he was the one bidding. 10 million. Within only 2 minutes, the price of first foundation building pill had reached 10 million. From this moment on, there were obviously fewer bidders, because this was very near to the real value of the foundation building pills. Moreover, there were still 8 left, so they need not compete so desperately yet. After a few more rounds of bidding, the first foundation building pill was finally auctioned off for 13 million. The winning bidder was an old man from the Li clan of the 8 great clans. His cultivation level was at the peak of the spiritual ocean tier, and it was obvious from the delight on his face that he had bought it for his own use. If he was fortunate, when he went into seclusion, he would come out as an elite of spiritual pedestal tier. Spiritual ocean and spiritual pedestal tiers were 2 completely different levels. Your Imperial Highness, if you intend to buy the foundation building pills, it would be best if you act soon. In my opinion, the more things drag on, the higher the price would be, Ling Han said to the eldest imperial prince. The rarer something is, the greater its value. End of the chapter. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao will be read in 5 chapters for every Monday, Wednesday, Friday and Sunday. Please leave this sound novel and press subscribe, follow, and the bell so you don't miss any new clips as well. See you.